Don't! Still hurts.
Don't! It still hurts there. Her voice came out like a sharp pain, weak and trembling, carried on the hot summer wind. Jack Harlan stopped on one knee, his hands staying in the air where he knew they should not be, but he also knew he had to stay if she was going to survive. The woman lay face down in the dry grass, her dress ripped and dirty, her body shaking as if the earth itself had turned against her. His shadow covered her, wide and heavy, the type of shadow that used to mean safety to him and now meant fear to her. She tried to move away, fingers pushing into dirt and dry stems. Each motion sent a strong pain through her hips and upper legs. Her breath stopped short when he reached for his coat, and she pulled back as if the cloth itself meant another unwanted touch. "Don't," she whispered again, weaker now. "It still hurts there." To anyone looking, it would have seemed wrong, a tall, gray-bearded rancher kneeling behind a young woman half injured in the grass. Jack knew exactly how it appeared, and he disliked that the world had become this way. He placed his coat over her back, slow and gentle, giving her cover from curious eyes above. His hands never touched bare skin. Blood had dried on her leg, not fresh anymore, hard and dark from hours in the sun, red and deep, evidence of something violent and recent. He spoke quietly, his voice rough from years of dust and quiet. "I'm not going to hurt you," he said, every word careful, every breath even. She did not reply. Her shoulders shook, and a sound came from her that was not quite a cry, but closer to an animal trapped in wire. Jack reached into his saddlebag, taking out clean cloth and a small can of water. He moved slowly enough that even the grass seemed to pause. When he came a little closer, she became stiff again, pain crossing her face as her hips shifted even a small amount. That was when he saw it clearly. The bruises along her side, the way her body guarded itself without her choice. This was someone pulled and pushed until pain became the only way to speak. Jack felt something old and risky move in his chest, a piece of memory he had buried with other bad ones. He placed the cloth on the ground where she could see it, then moved his hands back. "You do it," he said gently. "I will tell you how." Her head turned just enough for one eye to meet him, wide and shiny, looking for the lie she expected. When he did not come closer, when he stayed right where he was, something inside her broke open a little. She reached for the cloth with trembling fingers, each small movement costing her strength. As she pressed it to her side, a quick cry escaped, and she bit her lip hard enough to draw blood. Jack looked away on purpose. He stared at the horizon where red rocks rose from the ground like broken teeth. He spoke to keep her steady, to keep her present. "My name is Jack," he said, calm and clear. "I raise cattle not far from here." She swallowed, then whispered, "Sarah." A fly flew between them, loud and bold, and Jack waved it away without thought. The heat pressed close, thick and hard to breathe, and he knew she could not remain outside much longer. When she tried to move again, pain grabbed her, and her hand closed tight in the grass. "It still hurts," she said, quieter now, like an apology, "everywhere there." Jack nodded once, even though she could not see it. "I know," he said, because it was the only true thing he had. He poured a little water onto the cloth, pushed it closer with his boot toe, never crossing the line she had set. She cleaned herself as well as she could. Tears fell down her face and sank into the dust. That was when she whispered a name, almost no sound at all. "Victor." Jack's eyes became hard. Names carried weight out here, and that one did not sound like a man who respected God or the law. Hoofbeats came faint across the plain, far but real. Sarah heard them too, her body tightened, panic returning like a sharp strike. "He will find me," she said. Fear made her voice sharp. "He always does." Jack stood slowly, tall now, looking over the land. The summer wind changed, bringing the smell of sweat, leather, and horses that were not his. He looked down at Sarah, small and hurt in the grass, and understood something final. Helping her would cost him calm. Leaving would cost her life. He knelt again, careful and sure, making a choice he knew would follow him forever. "I am not leaving you," he said, firm now. Not today. Her eyes searched his face, reading every line, every mark, measuring truth against fear. The hoofbeats grew louder, and as Jack reached for the reins to lift her from the ground without touching her wrongly, one question stayed in the hot air, heavy as a judgment. Who was at fault? And what kind of man hurts a woman so much that even help feels like another wrong act? Jack lifted Sarah the only way he could, slow and gentle, one arm under her shoulders, the other under her knees, never letting his hands go where fear might become panic. She was lighter than normal, all bones and trembling muscles, like someone who had not eaten properly for a long time. The hoofbeats faded as he carried her to the shade of his horse, tying the reins low and steady so the animal stayed calm. "I have a place not far," he said, simple and clear. "Water, shade, and a roof that does not leak much." She nodded once, barely. When he placed her against the saddle, she winced, hands holding the leather until her knuckles turned white. "I know," he said, without her asking. "I know it hurts." They moved slowly across the plain, the horse walking gently, Jack led by the reins so she would not feel every step. The sun dropped lower, still warm, but less harsh now. By the time his ranch appeared, a simple group of worn wood and fence near the hills, Sarah was shaking again, not only from pain. This was the moment when people got returned. This was when lies came back. Jack saw it in her face and chose his words with care. "You stay as long as you need," he said. "No one takes you unless you agree." At the ranch, he helped her onto a narrow bed by the window, curtains pulled to block the heat. He placed water close, then stepped back, giving her room, like a man who knew the price of crossing boundaries. Sarah watched him with one eye open, judging every action, counting every breath. He washed his hands slowly at the basin, letting her hear the water, letting her see he was not rushing. "Rule here," he said, turning away as he spoke. "Door stays open a little. I do not touch unless you ask, and if you want me to leave, I leave." That earned a look from her, sharp and surprised. Most men did not offer a way out. Night came deep and quiet. Crickets filled the darkness, and the wind pushed dust against the walls. Sarah slept in short parts, waking with a quick breath, hands moving to guard herself before she remembered where she was. Each time, Jack stayed where he sat, at the table, cleaning gear that did not need cleaning. In the morning, he found new tracks near the water trough, 2 horses, shoes fresh. Someone had come asking. He did not tell Sarah right away. Instead, he made coffee, thin and bitter, and left it on the table with bread and a bit of dried meat. She ate slowly, watching him like a careful animal deciding whether to run. Later that day, they rode to town for supplies. Jack kept his hat low, eyes alert. Sarah stayed close, her steps careful, pain still clear in how she moved. Inside the general store, a man stared too long, then stared again, his smile not reaching his eyes. Jack felt the change before Sarah did. The room shifted, the air grew tight. The man said her name like it was his. Sarah froze. Jack stepped between them without thought. No words, no warning, just a quick, firm push that sent the man back into crates. Wood broke. People called out. Jack did not follow. He took Sarah's arm, steady but gentle, and walked her out. Outside, a deputy watched them leave and said nothing. That told Jack all he needed. Back at the ranch, Sarah finally told the truth. Not everything, just enough. Victor Kane was her stepfather, a respected man to neighbors, a cruel one behind doors. Jack listened, face set, hands still. When she finished, no clever words came, so he said the only thing that mattered. "You were safe here," he said, "for now." That night, the wind brought the sound of far riders, not close enough to see, close enough to warn. Jack stood on the porch, rifle against the rail, coffee cold in his hand. Helping her meant problems. Letting her go meant worse. He looked back at the light in the window, at the shadow of a young woman who had survived more than most, and he knew the path ahead would hurt everyone. Before we move on, leave a comment. What time is it where you are, and where are you listening from? The next morning, Jack did not pretend things were normal, because out here, pretending got people in trouble. He was up before the sun rose over the ridge, feeding his horse, checking the fence, walking his land like a man counting how much trouble one day could hold. Sarah stayed near the window, sitting with a blanket over her shoulders even though the summer air was warm. She watched him in the yard, and every time he turned away, she breathed a little easier. That told Jack she still trusted her fear more than any promise. He did not mind. Fear kept people alive. He did something simple instead. He gave her a small task that needed no strength or speed. He placed a pan on the table with a few beans and a dull knife. "If you feel able," he said, "cut the bad parts. We will make stew tonight." She looked at the beans like a challenge. Then she nodded and began, slow and careful. It was not about stew. It was about showing her she still had control over something. Jack saddled his horse around mid-morning, and Sarah tensed, thinking he was leaving. He shook his head. "I am not riding away," he said. "I am riding nearby." He pointed to the road. "Those tracks by the trough were not animals." Sarah's knife stopped. Her eyes rose. Jack kept his voice even. "We are going back to town," he said. "Not for fun, just to hear things." She swallowed. "I do not want him to see me." "He already sees you," Jack said. "We are going to see him back." They rode into town late morning when the heat rose and the street turned soft with dust. Jack kept Sarah on his right, close enough to notice her breathing. He did not hold her arm. He did not push her. He let her set the speed, and that kept her from falling apart. Jack bought a small bag of salt and some string, then leaned on the counter like he had time. The clerk, a thin man with tired eyes, nodded to the street. "You the one in the fight yesterday?" Jack shrugged. "The man bumped into me." The clerk gave a small smile, the kind people give when they avoid trouble but enjoy seeing it happen to others. "That man's name is Dirk," the clerk said quietly. "He works for Victor Kane." Sarah pulled back, like her body knew the name before her mind. Jack watched the clerk's face. "Victor Kane," Jack said, quiet. The clerk looked away. "That man has friends," he muttered. Jack let the quiet sit, then said, "Friends or fear?" The clerk did not answer, but his hands shook enough to show the truth. Outside, Jack did not go straight home. He took Sarah to a shaded spot behind the stable, near old barrels and the smell of horses. He spoke low. "He has influence," he said, "and he uses it." Sarah stared at the ground. "He always does," she whispered. Jack nodded once. He could have asked for details. He did not. He asked what mattered most. Is he coming himself or sending others? Sarah waited, then said, "He will come when he thinks he has already won." Those words stayed with Jack like a sharp point. On the way out of town, they passed the deputy again. The man leaned on a post, chewing slowly, watching people like a cat watches mice. He looked Jack over, then let his eyes move to Sarah. Jack felt his stomach twist. The deputy said little, but enough. "Best return lost property," he called, casual as talking about a stray animal. Sarah's shoulders rose. Jack stopped his horse. Not fast, not angry, just stopped. He looked at the deputy and spoke calmly. "People are not property," he said. A few people turned. The deputy smiled. "In my area," he said, "you will find it works differently." Jack nodded like he had heard such words before. Then he touched his hat. Not polite, not rude, just done. He rode on, but he remembered the deputy's name in faded thread, Mike Harlan. That was useful. Back at the ranch, the afternoon heat covered the house like a thick blanket. Sarah moved slower than the day before, pain appearing in new places. She tried to hide it, but Jack saw how she paused before sitting, how she held her breath when standing. He left water and a clean cloth on the table, then went outside to fix a hinge that did not need fixing. He gave her respect the way some give help, quietly, without show. Near sundown, a rider appeared at the far fence. One rider, sitting easy like he belonged. Jack stepped onto the porch and did not reach for his rifle yet. The rider stopped at the gate and called. "Jack Harlan," the man said, voice friendly. Too friendly. Jack did not reply right away. He watched the horse shift. The rider's eyes flicked to the house. Sarah stood in the doorway, half hidden, half still. Jack spoke normally. "Yes?" The rider smiled. "Word is you found a lost one," he said. "A young woman who should be home." Jack felt old anger rise, the kind that makes bad choices. He kept it down. "Who asks?" The rider's smile stayed. "Victor Kane," he said, "and he is willing to be fair." Jack breathed out slowly. Fair was what wolves called themselves before they bit. He stepped down from the porch, staying between the rider and the door. "Tell Victor Kane," Jack said, calm as dry wood, "I do not give people to men who send others to speak." The rider's eyes narrowed. He looked at the door again. That look told Jack something new. This was not only about taking Sarah back. This was about showing no one could stand against Victor Kane. The rider touched his hat, still smiling, and turned his horse like leaving. But as he rode away, he called back, soft and mean. "He is coming tomorrow," he said, "and he is not coming alone." Jack watched the dust disappear into evening light. Then he turned to the house and saw Sarah's face pale and tight, as if tomorrow already hurt her. Jack went inside, hung his hat, and checked the locks like a man who knew evil do not stop locks. Now he had to choose what would shape everything after. Would he flee with her into the open land, or stand and let Victor Kane come to his door? Jack did not sleep much that night, not from bravery, but from knowing how trouble arrives. It comes quiet, it comes early, it comes in groups when it smells fear. He sat at the kitchen table with a low lantern, cleaning a rifle already clean, then putting it away hoping he would not need it. Now and then he looked toward the back room. Sarah lay there, not really sleeping, just still, the way hurt people stay when moving might bring more pain. The house creaked once, and she breathed in sharply. Jack kept his voice soft, like speaking to a nervous horse. "You are safe," he said, and even he heard how weak the words sounded in the dark. He went outside before dawn and walked the fence again. The air was cooler, but the ground held heat, waiting for the sun to make everything burn. He checked the gate, the yard, the windows. No new tracks, which somehow felt worse. If they came, they were not wasting effort. When light came, Sarah walked into the kitchen, blanket around her, hair messy, eyes tired. She tried to seem fine, but moved like someone carrying something fragile inside. Jack poured coffee into a cup and slid it over. She took it with both hands, needing warmth more than the drink. He waited until she sipped twice and breathed steadier. "Tell me one thing," he said. She looked up, careful. "Does he care about how it looks?" Jack asked. "Or only about getting you back?" Sarah stared into the coffee like it knew. "He cares about both," she said. After a pause, she added, "He cares most about people thinking he's a good man." Jack nodded. That mattered. A man who wanted to seem good could be caught by his own image. A man who did not care could not. Jack stood and opened a small drawer by the window. He took paper and a short pencil, the kind used for counting feed or fence. He wrote a few lines, folded it tight, then added one more. "Names and deaths matter out here," he wrote. "Tell Marshal Cole Bennett it is Jack Harlan, the man who pulled you from that winter flood in '82. And then he folded it smaller, like keeping the past inside. Sarah watched. "Who is that for?" "A man who owes me," Jack said. Simple. He did not explain more because explanations can sound like promises, and promises can get people hurt. He saddled his horse and rode to a place where messages moved faster than riders, a trading stop on the way to town. He gave the note to a traveler with tired but honest eyes, plus a few coins. "Take this to Marshal Cole Bennett near Flagstaff," Jack said. "Tell him it is Jack Harlan from the winter flood in '82. He will know." The traveler raised an eyebrow. "The old marshal up there?" "That is him," Jack said. The traveler paused, then nodded. "Money speaks, and so does old loyalty." Jack rode back, shoulders tight. He did not like depending on others, but a man who fights everything alone usually ends up alone forever. By mid-morning, heat returned, thick and heavy. Sarah stayed inside, Jack near the porch. Then dust rose on the horizon. Not one rider, 3. They came in a straight line, easy in their saddles, hats low, rifles resting. The lead man was older, strong in the shoulders, riding like he owned the land. Jack knew before the man reached the gate, that had to be Victor Kane. Victor stopped outside the fence, not crossing, like he wanted to seem polite. He smiled and raised his hand, friendly as a church greeter. "Morning, Harlan," he called. Jack did not move. He kept hands visible and empty, a warning of its own. "Morning," he answered. Victor looked past him to the house. His eyes were light and calm, the kind that make people trust until they see trust as a tool. "I am here for my stepdaughter," Victor said, voice smooth, not loud. He said it like a kind act, like the town should thank him. "You are keeping her," he continued, "and I do not want trouble." Jack watched the other two riders. They looked at windows, not at him. That showed what they planned. Jack kept his voice level. "She is not going anywhere. She does not want to." Victor smiled wider, like Jack told a small joke. "She's confused," Victor said. "Women get confused," he added, with a soft laugh that sounded kind. Jack did not laugh. He heard a small sound behind him, the floor inside. Sarah had come to the doorway. She stayed half hidden, but Victor saw her. His face did not change, it just tightened. "Sarah," he said gently. The way he said it made Jack angry. "Come home," Victor said. "I will forgive this." Sarah's hands gripped the doorframe. Jack moved slightly to block her view of Victor, not to control her, but to help her breathe. Victor's eyes moved to Jack. "Harlan," he said, still calm, "this is family business." Jack nodded once. "You make it sound simple," Jack said. Victor's smile lessened a little. "You do not know what you step into," Victor replied. Jack leaned forward just enough to show he would not back away. "I know what fear looks like," he said, "and I know what it looks like when a man wants his fear back under his roof." For the first time, Victor's voice grew cold. "You are making a mistake," he said. He looked aside, and one rider moved his rifle, not aiming, just showing it. Victor kept speaking, friendly but with sharp edges now. "I go to Cameron tomorrow," he said. "Deputy Harlan will be there," he added, like mentioning the weather. "And I bring people who do not mind hard ways." Jack felt Sarah stiffen behind him. Victor touched his hat again, polite as always. Then he turned his horse, and the three rode away slowly, like they had endless time. Jack waited until the dust settled before speaking to Sarah. He did not soften it. "He is preparing a show," Jack said. "He wants witnesses," Sarah whispered. Jack nodded. "Yes, and he wants you scared enough to return to him." Sarah's voice shook. "What do we do?" Jack looked toward the road to Cameron, then farther to Flagstaff. He had two paths: run and be chased, or go where Victor wanted and turn the plan against him. Jack picked up his hat and placed it on his head, slow and sure, a decision made. "We go to Cameron," he said, "and we go today." Because Jack now saw the worst part. Victor was not coming to take Sarah quietly. He was coming to make sure everyone knew what happens to any man who tries to protect her. They left before the sun rose too high, because Jack knew heat weakens people faster than fear. He packed light: water, little food, clean cloth, and a small jar of ointment. Sarah came out with the blanket around her, moving stiff like her body expected pain before her mind did. Jack did not rush her. He set an even pace and let the distance do its work. The road to Cameron was dry and open, the kind empty that makes you feel watched even when alone. Sarah rode behind him at first, then beside when she could. Quiet most of the time, she watched the horizon like Victor might appear from it. Jack kept his eyes on the ground in the distance, reading tracks like some read books. After a few miles, he saw them. Fresh prints, 3 horses, not hiding. They followed, staying far enough to seem innocent. Jack's stomach tightened, but he kept his body relaxed. Sarah noticed anyway. She always did. "I feel them," she whispered. Jack nodded once. "I do too." He reached into his pocket, took a small piece of dried meat, and held it back without turning. "Eat," he said. It was almost strange, trouble following like a shadow, and he still acted like an old ranch hand worried about missed meals. Sarah took it, hand shaking, and chewed like forcing her body to remember life. By late morning, they saw the buildings near Cameron, low and dusty, with the river somewhere below. Not much to see, but many eyes, and that was the point. Victor wanted eyes. Jack guided his horse into the main street and felt every look land on them. Men at posts paused. A woman with a bucket stopped. Someone in a doorway leaned out for a better view. Sarah pulled her blanket tighter. Jack did not touch her. He moved his horse half a step to block the worst stares with his body. Deputy Mike Harlan was there, as Victor promised. Leaning on a post, hat back, lazy smile like the day was funny and everyone else the joke. 2 other men stood close. Jack recognized one, the rider from his gait, Dirk. Dirk looked pleased, like the story was already finished. The deputy stepped forward, slow and easy. "Harlan," he said, stretching the name, "you sure make work for honest people." Jack got down from the saddle carefully so Sarah would not feel alone. He kept hands low and open. "I came to keep peace," Jack said. The deputy laughed. "Ha, peace as you hand the girl over," he replied. Sarah's breath caught behind Jack. He did not turn because he did not want to give the deputy the joy of seeing her fear. Jack spoke to the deputy like discussing market prices. "You can ask her what she wants," he said. The deputy's smile stayed, but his eyes grew sharp. He looked past Jack to Sarah. "Well now," he said, "that sounds fair." Sarah stared at the deputy like danger in a holy place. Her mouth opened, closed. Words come hard when fear holds your throat. Jack felt her shake in the air, so he gave her another choice. He moved 1 step aside, enough for her to be seen, not enough to feel bare. Then he said, low and steady, "You do not owe anyone a long talk. 1 word is enough." Sarah swallowed hard. Her voice came small but clear. "No." That single word landed on the street like a stone in calm water. A few heads turned. Some looked at their feet. The deputy's smile grew thin. "Well," he said, "she is confused." Jack nodded like he expected that. "Funny," he said, "she sounded clear." Dirk stepped forward, impatience showing. He raised his hand towards Sarah, not touching, but close enough to make her pull back. That pull was all the deputy needed. "There," he said, pointing, "she's scared. She needs to go home." Jack's voice lowered. "She's scared of you and the men you stand with." The deputy's face tightened, then smoothed. He liked power too much to show anger. He stepped closer to Jack, voice low like giving advice. "Harlan," he said, "you're old enough to know how this goes. You walk away, you keep your ranch, nobody gets hurt." Jack almost laughed because that was the truest thing the deputy said all day. He looked at the watching crowd. Some faces showed sympathy, many showed fear. He saw Victor had already shaped them into a wall. Jack chose another way. He turned toward the trading post doorway and raised his voice enough to carry. If Ben Holloway was in Cameron, he would be there, watching the road as always. "I'm looking for Ben Holloway," Jack said. A pause. Then an older man moved in the shade, eyes careful, not wanting to be named. Jack kept his tone gentle. "I bought feed from you last summer," he said. "You remember me?" Ben nodded once, slow. Jack continued, calm. "Have you ever seen Victor Kane lose his temper when he does not get his way?" The street went quiet. The deputy spoke fast. "That is enough." He reached for Jack's arm. Jack did not hit first, but he did not let it be grabbed. He turned away, and the move brought him face to face with Dirk. Dirk pushed hard. Jack stumbled, caught himself, then returned 1 quick, hard strike to the ribs, enough to take breath, not break bones. Dirk bent over. The crowd gasped. The deputy's hand went to his gun. He pulled it part way, not aiming yet, just letting metal speak. The street became so still Jack heard his own breath. Sarah made a small, hurt sound behind him, fear turning solid again. Jack held still. He did not reach for a weapon. He raised both hands, breathing even. Without turning, he said, "Stay with your horse. Hold the reins. Do not run." The deputy stepped closer, voice low and mean. "Now you made this simple," he said. Jack met his eyes and saw the spark. The deputy wanted a reason. It felt like Victor planned every step, right to the moment a gun would appear. And then a rider came fast at the edge of town, dust rising behind like a signal. Jack did not know him yet, but the rider headed straight for them, not slowing. In one cold moment, Jack understood Victor had timed this perfectly, because that rider might be the only man left who remembered what a debt means. The rider arrived hard, dust rolling like a storm with a name. He stopped near the post, got down, and the street changed the instant his boots touched ground. You could see it in Deputy Harlan's eyes, that quick change saying, "This is not my control anymore." For the next minutes, the rider was older, thin, worn by sun, with a badge that did not look local. Marshal Cole Bennett. Jack did not smile. He just breathed out slowly, like setting down a heavy load carried too long. The marshal looked at Dirk bent over, at the deputy with hand near gun, at Sarah close behind her horse. Then he did something simple that changed it all. He spoke to the crowd, not loud, just steady. "Who is the young woman?" he asked, "and who speaks for her?" Sarah's throat tightened, but this time she did not stay silent. She stepped half forward, still holding the reins, still shaking, but standing. "My name is Sarah Kane," she said, voice thin but true, "and I speak for myself." That was the turning point. Not the marshal's arrival, not Jack's strike, but her claiming her own voice in front of those who wanted her quiet. The marshal nodded like he had seen such strength before and valued it. He turned to the deputy. "Do you have a warrant?" he asked. The deputy tried to laugh, but it failed. The marshal waited. Silence is hard to fight. Jack kept hands up on purpose, buying time like an old hand in bad weather. "No," the deputy said finally. The marshal looked at Victor's man Dirk, then the crowd. "The rest of you," he said, "are standing hoping fear does the work." He stepped closer to Sarah, not too close, giving space. "Do you want to go with Victor Kane?" he asked. Sarah swallowed. Then she said the word that counted. "No." The marshal tipped his head. "Do you want protection?" he asked. Sarah looked at Jack, then back to the marshal. "Yes," she said. That was enough for the law when the law belonged to a man who still trusted it. The marshal turned to the deputy. "She rides with me," he said. The deputy's face tightened. "You do not know Victor Kane," he muttered. The marshal's eyes stayed calm. "I know men who hide behind good names," he said. "I have met many." The marshal did not hang anyone. He did not allow a crowd to form. He did not make it a show. He did it properly, slowly, the way that lasts. He took statements. He told people to stay, and they did because his badge asked once. Then he looked at Jack. "You did right bringing her into the open," the marshal said. Jack nodded once. It was not pride. It was relief mixed with the old taste of knowing this was not finished. Because Victor Kane would not accept shame easily. That evening, as the sun dropped and heat eased, the marshal took Sarah out of Cameron. Jack rode a little behind, close enough to help, far enough to give her space. On the trail, she spoke little. She did not need to. But after some time, she looked back at Jack, and for the first time, her eyes held more than fear. They held a question. Jack answered simply. "You do not owe me trust," he said. "Just keep moving forward." Sarah nodded, and Jack understood something important for anyone hearing this. Sometimes the bravest act is not winning a fight. That day in Cameron was not only about a rancher and a young woman. It was about a choice. The choice to let fear rule the town, or to place fear where it belongs. Here is what I learned from that street in Cameron. Most of us do not face badges and guns, but we all get trapped by something, a memory that stays, a person who knows your weak spot, a habit that calls when you were tired. Sometimes the bravest thing is not a strike or a weapon. Sometimes it is saying one clear word when the world wants silence. And true hope comes from small choices made under pressure. If this story speaks to you, like it. It helps others find these old Western tales with heart. And if you want more of this journey, subscribe so you do not miss what happens next. Because Victor Kane is not done yet, and Jack just risked his whole life. Now, tell me in the comments, what time is it where you are right now, and where are you listening from? And later, when the dust settled, Jack would learn that saving a life can also rebuild one. Because the next part is where Victor stops acting polite and Jack discovers what a desperate man will destroy just to feel strong again.